The year was 2189, when humanity finally received the invitation they had long suspected would come. The massive alien ship appeared over Geneva without warning, projecting images of a diverse council of species calling themselves the Galactic Confederation. They had been watching Earth for centuries, they explained, waiting for humans to develop sufficient technology to join their interstellar community. 3 months later, Admiral Ji Woo Park stood at attention in the gleaming halls of the Confederation, embassy on Earth, watching alien diplomats mingle with human representatives. The Confederation's welcome had been polite but noticeably cool. Park adjusted her formal uniform collar, maintaining her professional composure despite the whispered comments she could hear from the tall, silver-skinned Zorlathi delegates nearby. Their ships barely achieve reliable FTL travel, one Zorlathi said to another, not bothering to lower his voice. Did you see their weapon systems? Primitive directed energy technology that we mastered millennia ago. Park locked eyes briefly with Defense Secretary Minho across the room. He gave her an almost imperceptible nod before returning to his conversation with a slug-like Drentari ambassador. The Zorlathi diplomat noticed Park watching and approached her, towering nearly 2 feet above her. Admiral, isn't it? We were just discussing your charming little fleet. Quite impressive for such a young species. The condescension dripped from every word. We do our best with what we have, Park replied evenly. Indeed. We've all been there, stumbling through our early spacefaring years. The Zorlathi's mouth parts clicked in what Park had learned was their version of patronizing laughter. Your people should be proud to have come so far while isolated on your single world. The Confederation Educational Authority has excellent programs to help developing species catch up. I'll have my assistant send the materials. Park forced a smile. Most generous, we're eager to learn. Later that evening, Park slipped away from the reception into a secure room beneath the Earth Embassy. 6 other humans were waiting for her, military and intelligence leaders from Earth's major powers. It's worse than we thought, Park said, sinking into a chair. They see us as children. Good, replied Defense Secretary Minho, his eyes hard. Let them underestimate us. Intelligence Director Sung-ho pulled up a holographic display showing the main Confederation fleet positions. Our observers report the same attitude throughout Confederation space. They've classified Earth as a Category 3 developing species. They believe our technology is exactly what we've shown them. Nothing more. The Zorlathi are the worst, added Fleet Commander Ji-yeon, a wiry woman with decades of experience. They control nearly 30% of Confederation military assets and make no secret of their belief that martial prowess determines a species' worth. Park nodded grimly. The facade is working perfectly then. What's the status on protocol? Tsunami. Minho brought up a new display showing massive underwater structures on Earth's oceans. Ahead of schedule. The Mariana facility is at 94% completion. Pacific Grid Stations 1 through 7 are fully operational. Atlantic Array will be online next month. The orbital platforms? Park asked. All 28 disguised as research stations, Sung-ho replied. Confederation inspectors have visited twice and found exactly what we wanted them to see. And the shipyards? Ji-yeon smiled for the first time. The mountain facilities in the Rockies, Andes, Himalayas, and Alps are all at full production capacity. We've completed 189 vessels with another 250 in final assembly. The lunar darkside operation has exceeded targets by 15%. Park zoomed in on production figures scrolling past. 100-meter battleships with technology that would make the Confederation's eyes widen. Stealth systems developed during centuries of humans hiding from each other. Weapons designed by people who had spent millennia finding more efficient ways to destroy their enemies. The irony, Park said quietly. They mock us for being warlike, then dismiss our capacity for war. They evolved as cooperative species, Minho replied. Most Confederation races never experienced the kind of prolonged conflicts that shaped humanity. They had centuries of peace before reaching space. We never had that luxury, Park said. Let's hope we never need to deploy Protocol Tsunami. But if we do... She looked at the images of ships hidden beneath mountain ranges, underwater bases, and secret lunar facilities. They'll learn that our history of warfare wasn't time wasted. The meeting continued late into the night as they reviewed intelligence from across Confederation space. When it finally ended, Park sent an encrypted message to Earth's unified government. Facade maintaining effectiveness. Continue diplomatic integration while accelerating protocol tsunami. Recommend increasing production by 20%. As she rode the lift back to the embassy's main level, Park composed herself, readying to once again play the role of the humble representative of a young, naive species. She would smile at their condescension. She would accept their patronizing help. She would listen patiently to stories of how advanced their civilizations were. And all the while, deep beneath Earth's oceans and mountains, hidden in the shadows of the moon, humanity's real fleet would continue to grow, unseen, unexpected, and vastly more powerful than anything the Confederation could imagine. Earth's hidden fleet surfaces, silencing Galactic Mockery. 6 months after Earth's induction into the Galactic Confederation, the alarms began blaring across diplomatic channels. Admiral Jiwoo Park was in the middle of a routine inspection of Seoul Spaceport when her comm unit flashed with the highest priority signal. "Admiral, you need to see this," said her aide, looking pale. The holographic display showed multiple Confederation worlds under attack. Massive ships with jagged, predatory designs were raining destruction on colony planets along the Orion Arm. The Drazari Empire, longtime rivals of the Confederation, had launched a surprise offensive on a scale not seen in over a century. Within hours, Park found herself in an emergency session of the Confederation Defense Council. The mood was grim as reports flooded in from across the sector. "Outpost 2-27 has fallen," announced a blue-skinned Talaxian general. "Antares colony reports massive civilian casualties." The Zorlathi High Commander Krex slammed his fist on the table. "How did they penetrate our early warning network? The Drazari fleet shouldn't have been able to approach undetected." Park studied the tactical displays with growing concern. The Drazari ships were employing some kind of advanced stealth technology that had rendered the Confederation's vaunted defense grid useless. 3 human colony worlds lay directly in the invasion path. "We need to reallocate defense resources immediately," Park said, pointing to the projected advance of the Drazari fleet. "New Haven Colony has over 2 million human settlers and minimal orbital defenses." The Zorlathi commander barely glanced at the highlighted human world. "We have more established worlds to protect, Admiral. Your colonies are recent developments with limited strategic value." "Those are civilian populations," Park insisted, fighting to keep her voice level. "They're completely vulnerable." "Resources are limited," replied a thin, multi-limbed counselor from the Vespid Alliance. "We must prioritize worlds with critical infrastructure and larger populations." Park watched in growing anger as the Council allocated defense resources. The 3 human colonies received only token defensive ships, not nearly enough to evacuate the populations, let alone repel an attack. Later that day, Park filed a formal request for additional protection with the Confederation Fleet Command. The response came back within hours. Request denied. Back in her office at Earth Command, Park paced as her senior staff gathered for an emergency meeting. "They're hanging us out to dry," said Vice Admiral Junho, pounding his fist on the table. "New Haven will be hit within 2 weeks, and they've sent 5 patrol ships. 5. "We knew this might happen," Park replied grimly. "The Confederation sees us as expendable." Defense Secretary Minho's face appeared on the main screen connecting from Tokyo. "The President has reviewed your report, Admiral. How bad is it?" "Bad," Park said. "The Drazari have somehow developed technology that masks their approach until they're practically on top of a planet. The Confederation's fleet is scattered, trying to respond to simultaneous attacks on a dozen fronts. And they've made it clear our colonies are low priority." "And what about our resources?" Minho asked carefully. Park understood the real question. Protocol tsunami assets remain undetected. We could deploy limited forces to defend our colonies without revealing our full capabilities. "That would expose part of what we've been hiding," Junho warned. "Better than watching millions die," Park countered. Their discussion was interrupted by an incoming transmission. Commander Krex of the Zorlathi appeared on screen, his silver skin reflecting the emergency lights behind him. "Admiral Park," he said with thinly veiled impatience, "I've been informed you've submitted 3 additional requests for defensive assets for your colonies in the past 6 hours. "That's correct, Commander. The projected Drazari advance cannot be altered with the pitiful resources your species is demanding," Krex interrupted. "Your persistence is becoming tiresome. The Confederation is fighting for its survival against a superior enemy. These frontier worlds you're so concerned about are simply not strategically significant." Park felt her jaw tighten. "Not significant to whom, Commander? There are millions of human lives at stake." Krex's facial appendages twitched in what Park had learned was a gesture of dismissal. Perhaps humans should develop better survival instincts or return to their primitive caves. "The strong survive in this galaxy, Admiral. Your species is simply experiencing its first lesson in cosmic reality." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Park staring at a blank screen. "That arrogant," Junho began, but Park held up her hand. "Get me a secure line to the President," she said quietly, "and begin preparations to move Protocol Tsunami assets into position near New Haven." Quietly. As her staff rushed to comply, Park studied the tactical displays showing the Drazari advance. The Confederation was being outmaneuvered on every front, their vaunted fleet technology proving inadequate against the enemy's new capabilities. 3 days later, the situation had deteriorated further. 2 more Confederation core worlds had fallen, and refugee ships were flooding safer sectors. The Drazari advance had accelerated, and New Haven would now be reached within 8 days. Park stood before the President and Joint Chiefs in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. "The Confederation has officially denied our final request for assistance," she reported. "Commander Krex suggested we accept the inevitable losses as the price of galactic citizenship." The President's face was grim. "Then we have no choice. Admiral Park, you are authorized to implement Protocol Tsunami Phase 1. Protect our people." Park nodded, feeling the weight of the decision. For decades, humanity had hidden its true capabilities, building in secret. While presenting a facade of limited technology to the galaxy, they had hoped to never need their hidden fleet. That hope was now gone. "Send the activation codes," Park ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do." Earth's hidden fleet surfaces, silencing Galactic Mockery. The colony world of New Haven hung like a blue-green jewel in space, its twin moons casting silver light across sprawling settlements below. From orbit, it looked peaceful, but the 2 million human colonists were in a state of barely controlled panic. Evacuation ships were loading constantly, but everyone knew the math was impossible. The Confederation's token defense force could transport maybe 10% of the population before the Drazari arrived. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Confederation escort vessel Vigilant, officially there as an observer only. The Zorlathi captain had made it abundantly clear that Park's presence was a diplomatic courtesy, nothing more. "Long-range sensors detecting multiple warp signatures," announced the sensor officer. "Estimated arrival time 4 hours." The Zorlathi captain turned to Park. "The Drazari battle group is ahead of schedule. We've received orders to complete current evacuations and withdraw." "Withdraw?" Park kept her voice steady despite her rage. "There are still over 1.8 million people on the surface." "Those are our orders, Admiral. The Confederation cannot afford to lose these ships in a hopeless defense." The captain's tone suggested the matter was closed. "You may join us, or if you prefer, remain with your colonists. The choice is yours." Park's hand moved to the secure communicator hidden beneath her uniform collar. "I'll be staying," she said quietly. The captain nodded, unsurprised. "Very well. Your species' emotional attachment to individuals is admirable, if impractical. Good luck, Admiral." 2 hours later, Park stood alone in the colony's small defense control center. The last Confederation ships had jumped away, leaving behind thousands of desperate colonists still waiting for evacuation that would never come. Park opened a secure channel, This is Admiral Park. Authorization code, Tsunami Prime. Execute protocol. Phase 1 immediately. The response came instantly. Authorization confirmed. Tsunami assets deploying now. Across Earth's oceans, massive sections of seafloor suddenly shifted. In the deepest parts of the Mariana Trench, Philippine Trench, and other abyssal zones, enormous hangar doors slid open for the first time. Colossal vessels, built in secret over decades, rose from the depths, their advanced propulsion systems barely disturbing the water as they ascended. In orbit around Earth, 28 research stations simultaneously transformed, weapons systems and engines emerging from hidden compartments as they reconfigured into battle cruisers. Beneath mountain ranges across every continent, massive doors disguised as natural rock formations swung open. Launch rails extended from underground facilities that had been disguised as mining operations or geological research stations. Hundreds of ships, from nimble fighters to massive carriers, emerged from their hiding places. On the far side of the moon, in a crater that had been carefully shielded from all observation, the real pride of Earth's fleet awaited. The dreadnought Thunderhead, nearly a kilometer long and equipped with weapons systems that no one in the Confederation had ever imagined humans possessing. Back on New Haven, Park watched her display as the colony's minimal defenses suddenly came to life. What had appeared to be simple communication towers and atmospheric regulators began to transform, revealing advanced shield generators and weapon emplacements. "Governor Hyun," Park called to the colony leader who stood shocked beside her. "I need you to make an announcement. Tell your people to get to the designated shelter areas immediately. The Real Defense Plan is now active." "Real Defense Plan?" The governor stared at her in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Park pointed to the updated display, which now showed dozens of ships emerging from concealed underground bases on New Haven itself. "Humanity has been preparing for this possibility for decades. We are not as helpless as the Confederation believes." The governor's eyes widened as he watched ships rising from hidden bases beneath the colony's 3 largest lakes. How long has this been here?" "Since the first foundation was laid," Park replied. "Every human colony has similar defenses. We never trusted that we'd be fully accepted by the galactic community." 3 hours later, the Drazari battle group dropped out of warp space near New Haven. Their fleet was imposing, 15 large warships and dozens of support vessels, more than enough to overwhelm the defenses of a minor colony world. What they found instead was a fully shielded planet and a defensive fleet of 30 ships of clearly human design, but with technology far beyond what the Drazari intelligence suggested humans possessed. The Drazari commander opened a communication channel. "This is War Leader Krozak of the Drazari Empire. Your defenses are noted but inadequate. Surrender the colony and we will allow evacuation of key personnel." Park stepped into view. "This is Admiral Jiwoo Park of Earth Command. We decline your offer. I suggest you reconsider your position." The Drazari commander's scaled face showed amusement. "Your species' reputation for irrational bravery seems accurate. Very well. We shall do this the difficult way." The channel closed, and the Drazari ships moved into attack formation. "All vessels, defensive formation Theta," Park ordered. "Activate phase shift shields and prepare countermeasures." As the first Drazari weapons fire approached, the human ships shimmered and seemed to partially disappear. The energy blasts passed through them with minimal effect. "Return fire," Park commanded. "Targeted strikes only." The human vessels responded with precision weapons that the Drazari had never encountered. Focused graviton beams that bypassed shields and quantum-locked missiles that couldn't be intercepted by conventional means. 3 Drazari vessels were crippled in the first exchange. On the Drazari command ship, War Leader Krozak stared in disbelief at the damage reports. "Impossible. Their technology is decades beyond what we were told." As the battle continued, a new alert sounded. Emerging from warp space behind the Drazari fleet was the massive form of the Thunderhead, flanked by 40 additional warships. Park opened the channel again. "War Leader Krozak, This is your final warning. Withdraw your forces or be destroyed. Before the Drazari could respond, a flash of light heralded the arrival of a Zorlothi battlecruiser. Commander Krex's face appeared on the view screen next to the Drazari's. "Admiral Park," Krex said, his voice tight with shock. "What is the meaning of this? Where did these ships come from?" Park allowed herself a small smile. "They came from Earth, Commander. It seems your intelligence on our capabilities was incomplete." As Krex watched in stunned silence, the human fleet systematically disabled the remaining Drazari vessels without losing a single ship of their own. "I believe," Park said calmly, "that the Confederation might want to reconsider its defensive strategies. We have similar forces moving to protect our other colonies. And, Commander Krex, you might want to inform your superiors that humans don't appreciate being underestimated." Earth's hidden fleet surfaces, silencing Galactic Mockery news of the battle at New Haven, spread across Confederation space like wildfire. At first, many dismissed the reports as human exaggeration or propaganda. It simply wasn't possible that a recently contacted species could have developed technology that rivaled or exceeded Confederation standards. But as visual records leaked and Zorlothi Commander Krex filed his official report, denial became impossible. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Thunderhead, reviewing tactical displays from across the sector. In the week since New Haven, Earth had revealed defensive fleets at all three of its major colony worlds. The Drazari, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance, had been forced to pull back and reconsider their strategy. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Confederation High Command," announced her communications officer. The screen flickered to life, showing the Supreme Council, representatives from the 12 most powerful species in the Confederation. Their expressions ranged from shock to admiration to barely concealed anger. "Admiral Park," began the Talaxian counselor, "the Council has questions about Earth's sudden military capabilities." Park had prepared for this moment. "I understand your surprise, counselors. Earth has always maintained defensive capabilities beyond what we've publicly displayed. It's been our policy since before contact." "A policy of deception," snapped the Zorlothi representative. "You deliberately misled the Confederation about your technological development. Did we?" Park raised an eyebrow. "We simply never volunteered information that wasn't requested. The Confederation assumed our level of technology based on what we chose to show. Those assumptions were your own." A murmur ran through the council members. "Regardless of how we arrived at this point," the Talaxian continued diplomatically, "we face an unprecedented crisis. The Drazari advance continues on multiple fronts. The Rigel system is under heavy assault and Confederation forces are struggling to hold the line. Rigel is a major transportation hub," added another counselor. "If it falls, 3 entire sectors will be cut off from support." Park studied the tactical display showing the Rigel system under siege. "What are you proposing?" "We're requesting Earth's assistance," the Talaxian said, clearly struggling with the admission. "Your ships have demonstrated capabilities that could turn the tide at Rigel." Park kept her face neutral, though inwardly she felt a grim satisfaction. "Earth will help defend Rigel. I'll dispatch Fleet Commander Taeho Kim with our 7th Tactical Group immediately." After the transmission ended, Park turned to her senior staff. "Well, that was interesting. They need us now." Vice Admiral Junho chuckled. "Amazing how quickly we went from primitive newcomers to valued allies." "Don't get too comfortable," Park warned. "They're watching us more closely than ever. Once this crisis passes, there will be demands for explanations, technology sharing, inspections. But first we need to save their hides at Rigel," Junho finished. 3 days later, Fleet Commander Taeho Kim stood on the bridge of the destroyer Avalanche as it dropped out of warp at the edge of the Rigel system. The scene before him was chaos. The Confederation's defensive line was crumbling under relentless Drazari assault. Massive battle cruisers hammered away at Confederation ships, while smaller craft swarmed around them like angry insects. "Status. Report," Kim ordered, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. 43 Drazari warships engaged with 29 remaining Confederation vessels. his tactical officer reported. Confederation forces at 38% combat effectiveness and falling. They can't hold out much longer, Kim nodded. Earth's 7th Tactical Group consisted of 12 advanced destroyers and the carrier Horizon, which held 60 fighter craft. Against 43 Drazari warships, they were still outnumbered, but numbers weren't everything. Open a channel. To the Confederation flagship, Kim ordered. The screen flickered to show a command center filled with smoke and flashing emergency lights. A Zorlathi officer appeared, his silver skin smudged with what appeared to be blood. This is Sub-Commander Trex of the Confederation flagship Indomitable. Who am I addressing? Fleet Commander Taiho Kim, Earth Defense Force. We're here to assist. The Zorlathi's eyes widened slightly. We appreciate the gesture, Commander, but your small fleet cannot turn this battle. We recommend you withdraw and report our situation. Kim allowed himself a small smile. That won't be necessary. Please adjust your targeting protocols to avoid friendly fire. We're moving in. Before the Zorlathi could protest, Kim closed the channel and addressed his fleet. All ships implement Battle Plan Echo. Horizon launch fighter wings in 3 waves. Destroyers form up in arrow formation. The sleek human vessels moved with uncanny coordination, forming a spearhead that drove straight toward the heart of the Drazari fleet. As they closed distance, the Drazari responded predictably, redirecting firepower toward this new threat. Energy buildup in Drazari weapon systems, reported the tactical officer. They're targeting us with everything they've got. Perfect, Kim said calmly. Deploy phase shift shields and prepare countermeasures. As the devastating Drazari energy weapons discharged, the human ships seemed to flicker like bad holograms. The energy passed through them, causing minimal damage. Phase shift, holding at 89%, reported the engineering officer. They can't touch us with directed energy. Now it's our turn, Kim said. All ships execute targeting pattern Delta. Fire quantum-locked missiles, full spread. Across the human fleet, launch bays opened, and missiles streaked toward the Drazari vessels. Unlike conventional weapons, these missiles existed partially in quantum flux, making them nearly impossible to track or intercept. They struck with devastating accuracy, bypassing shields and detonating at critical points on the Drazari ships. On the Confederation flagship, Sub-Commander Trex watched in stunned silence as his tactical display showed multiple Drazari vessels suddenly losing power or exploding outright. Impossible, he whispered. How are they doing this? Meanwhile, fighter craft from the Horizon executed perfectly coordinated attack runs that no alien pilot could match. They moved in formations that seemed to anticipate every Drazari countermove. They're using battlefield prediction algorithms, said Trex's tactical officer in awe, but at a level I've never seen before. It's like they know what the enemy will do before they do it. Kim's voice came through the command channel. Sub-Commander, we've opened a gap in their formation. Move your remaining ships to these coordinates for maximum effectiveness. Trex hesitated only briefly before giving the order. Pride had no place when survival was at stake. Within 2 hours, the tide of battle had completely turned. The remaining Drazari vessels were in full retreat, with the human-led force in pursuit to ensure they couldn't regroup. In the aftermath, Sub-Commander Trex requested permission to board the Avalanche. Standing face-to-face with Kim in the destroyer's conference room, the Zorlathi officer was uncharacteristically humble. Your tactics were remarkable, Trex admitted. But I must ask, how did a species that only recently achieved space travel develop such advanced technology? Kim considered his answer carefully. Sub-Commander, humanity has spent most of its history fighting itself. While the Confederation evolved through cooperation, we evolved through competition and conflict. We've been preparing for threats since before we knew what those threats might be. But the level of coordination, the weapon systems, Trex shook his head in disbelief. When you live expecting attack, you develop different priorities, Kim said simply. The Confederation has been at peace so long that it forgot what it means to truly prepare for war. Humanity never had that luxury. As reports of the victory at Rigel spread across Confederation space, similar scenes played out in a dozen other systems. Human ships arrived at besieged worlds, turning desperate last stands into unlikely victories. The Drazari advance, seemingly unstoppable just weeks before, began to falter against an enemy they had never anticipated. On the Zorlathi homeworld, Commander Krex watched tactical displays showing human vessels systematically dismantling Drazari forces with technology his species had believed impossible. His earlier mockery of humans now felt like ash in his mouth. "We underestimated them," he said quietly to his aide. "All this time, they let us believe they were primitive, and we were too arrogant to question it." Earth's hidden fleet surfaces, silencing Galactic Mockery. 3 months after the Battle of Rigel, the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with tension. Representatives from all member species had gathered for what many were calling the most significant session in centuries. The massive circular hall with its soaring crystalline dome that displayed the stars beyond had never felt so cramped despite its enormous size. At the center of attention stood Admiral Jiwoo Park, flanked by Earth's diplomatic corps. Gone was the hesitant, deferential posture they had adopted in previous council sessions. Today they stood tall, their faces composed but confident. The Drazari War, as it was now being called, had ended 2 weeks earlier with the signing of an armistice. The once mighty invasion force had been systematically dismantled by the combined might of Confederation forces led by human tactical experts and ships. What had begun as a desperate holding action had transformed into a decisive victory that military historians were still struggling to fully analyze. "This emergency session of the Confederation Grand Council will now commence," announced the Talaxian High Speaker, his blue skin shimmering under the chamber's lights. "We are here to discuss the revelations regarding Earth's technological capabilities and their implications for our alliance moving forward." Admiral Park stepped forward, her uniform crisp and unadorned except for a single silver pin designating her rank. "Honorable representatives of the Confederation, I understand you have questions. We are prepared to answer them candidly." The Zorlathi representative rose first, his silver skin catching the light. Commander Krex had been promoted following his experiences at Rigel, though many whispered it was to save face for his species after their dismissive treatment of humans had been proven so catastrophically wrong. "Admiral Park," Krex began, his tone carefully neutral, "how long has Earth possessed technology far beyond what was disclosed to the Confederation upon your acceptance into our community?" A murmur ran through the chamber. It was the question everyone wanted answered. Park's response was measured. "The technology you witnessed was developed over centuries, Commander, long before we made contact with the Confederation." "Centuries?" a reptilian delegate hissed in disbelief. "Our observations of your planet showed nothing of the sort." Park allowed herself a small smile. "With respect, they wouldn't. Earth detected your observation platforms approximately 300 years ago." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. The Talaxian High Speaker had to strike his sonic gavel repeatedly to restore order. "Impossible," said a multi-limbed Vespid representative. "Our cloaking technology is effective," Park cut in diplomatically, "but not perfect. Once we detected your presence, we began implementing what we termed the two-track development plan. Public technology progressed along expected lines, while our true capabilities were developed in complete secrecy." Images appeared on the massive screens around the chamber. Vast underwater installations, mountain bases concealed by advanced holographic technology, lunar facilities hidden from observation by reflective shielding that mimicked the moon's natural surface. "As our scientists analyzed your observation methods, we developed increasingly sophisticated ways to shield our actual progress," Park continued. "We compartmentalized knowledge, built in remote locations, and used natural barriers to our advantage." "But why?" asked a small elder Drentari. "If you knew about us, why not attempt contact?" Defense Secretary Minho stepped forward to stand beside Park. "History taught us caution. Humanity spent millennia divided, often at war with itself. We learned through bitter experience that first contact between civilizations with power imbalances rarely ends well for the less advanced group." "So you deceived us," Krex stated flatly. "We protected ourselves. Minho corrected firmly. When official contact finally came, we presented exactly what you expected to see. An emerging spacefaring species taking its first tentative steps into the galactic community. You assumed we were primitive and we allowed that assumption to stand. Park added. The Zorlathi delegate at our welcome reception told me that the strong survive in this galaxy. It seems humanity took that lesson to heart before we ever heard it spoken. Uncomfortable silence filled the chamber as the representatives processed this information. Your weapons technology, ventured a scientist from a gas giant dwelling species. The phase shift shields, quantum-locked missiles, graviton beams, these are theoretical concepts our brightest minds have only speculated about. Not theoretical. To us, replied Earth's chief science advisor Youngmi, when you've spent thousands of years finding new ways to protect yourself and defeat enemies, certain technological paths become obvious. What your species developed through cooperation, we developed through necessity and competition. The discussions continued for hours, with Earth's representatives patiently explaining the scope of human technological development while carefully avoiding sharing specific details of their most advanced systems. By the time the session adjourned for the day, a new understanding had begun to emerge. 1 week later, the Confederation formally recognized Earth as a full peer power with all associated rights and responsibilities. Admiral Park was appointed to lead the newly reformed Confederation Defense Forces, tasked with implementing the tactical lessons learned during the Drazari conflict and integrating human and alien military technologies. On the day she assumed command, Park addressed her multi-species fleet from the bridge of the Thunderhead, which had been redesignated as the flagship of the Confederation fleet. Today marks a new beginning, she said, her words transmitted to ships crewed by dozens of different species. Not just for humanity, but for the entire Confederation. We came together in crisis and found strength in our differences. She paused, looking at the faces before her, silver-skinned Zorlathi standing alongside blue Talaxians, reptilian Saurans, and human officers. Humanity divided itself for millennia, fighting amongst ourselves until we learned a crucial lesson: prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. We welcome friendship, but we will never again be underestimated. And now, we bring that hard-won wisdom to our alliance with you. Her words echoed through ships across the fleet and were recorded for broadcast throughout Confederation space. In the diplomatic quarter of the Confederation capital, the formal Zorlathi apology ceremony was conducted with all the pomp their culture demanded. Commander Krex, representing his species, presented Earth's ambassador with the ceremonial blade of contrition, a ritual so rarely performed that many thought it had been abandoned centuries ago. We acknowledge our error in judgment, Krex stated formally, head bowed. The Zorlathi recognize humanity as worthy adversaries and more valuable allies. Later, in private chambers, Krex met with his intelligence staff to review the comprehensive analysis of how they had missed the signs of humanity's true capabilities. It's all here in retrospect, said his chief analyst, displaying evidence that now seemed obvious. Unexplained energy signatures in deep ocean regions, inconsistencies in resource allocation, mathematical anomalies in their public technological development. We saw what we expected to see, Krex admitted, a young, brash species stumbling into the galactic community. And they knew exactly how we would perceive them, the analyst added. They played on our assumptions masterfully. Krex moved to the viewport, looking out at the Earth diplomatic vessel in orbit. A species that can hide its true nature so completely while surrounded by watching eyes. They are more dangerous and more valuable than we ever imagined. Across Confederation space, attitudes toward humans were changing rapidly. What had been condescension turned to respect, and in some cases, wariness. Humanity had emerged from obscurity to become a pivotal power virtually overnight. On Earth, Admiral Park stood on the balcony of the newly constructed Confederation Embassy in Geneva, looking up at the night sky. Defense Secretary Minho joined her, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. To Protocol Tsunami, he said, offering her a glass. Never needed again, I hope. To a new equilibrium, Park replied, clinking her glass against his. And to humanity's place among the stars, earned the hard way. Above them the stars twinkled, no longer distant and unreachable, but filled with worlds now bound together in a partnership of genuine equals.